Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It's about 10:33. Hope everyone's doing good. It is a nice, beautiful. It's virtually summer right now, so the weather has been pretty spectacular. I love the heat. I love the warmer days. I don't know. I just feel. I mean, this winter was pretty non-existent, but it still gets cold, and and it's drawn out to a point where it feels like it's going on forever. But I'm a big summertime person, so it just feels whenever this climate is upon us, I always feel more awake and alive, and just more invigorated, and just more happy, I guess. So, but anyway, so I want to welcome aboard. I've gotten some new subscribers here on Film Fanatic. That's been really great, and I've been still cranking out reviews. I went to last night. I went to Opera House Video in Belfast, my favorite shop here in Belfast, Maine, and I got some new movies. I'm always trying to mix things up for this channel, So, and most of the movies that I talk about on this channel, and kind of mostly what I'm about is the old school movies. The typical 70s. I've said bazillion times, and over the last few years or last year, the 70s is by far my favorite decade. But in the past this past year, I've been exploring lots of movies that I have never seen before. Movies that came out in the 60s and even 50s, and tracing back the whole origins of the whole like grindhouse genre and the exploitation world. Whether it's a horror film or some kind of weird sex exploitation movie, just amazing. And that continues to be my favorite style. But again, I try to stay current. I try to stay on top of like newer things that are coming out, and you know and I aside from that style, that very specific style, I love all kinds of movies. That's my jam. But I love all kinds of movies, so I'm always trying to. That's the exploitation stuff is my main focus. But I want to talk about a lot of different movies also. Just always bring variety, because it's cliche, but it's true. I think variety is a spice of life. The more open minded you are, and the more you're willing to explore, you can be so pleasantly surprised by what you discover. Things that really inspire you, things that really get under your skin, and are just it's created this an amazing experience. Or other things that it might not be your cup of tea, but you're at least willing to explore those new things. So one of the new movies that I just got, and I just rented it last night, and unfortunately I did not make it all the way through. I've been really disappointed. In all honesty, I've been really disappointed with a lot of newer films, especially newer horror films. I was really disappointed with Thanksgiving, the Eli Roth film that came out. That was kind of hyped and really talked about, and I thought that movie was okay at moments, but overall, kind of a disappointing movie. I just don't get it, like, as to what's going on most of the time with a lot of these newer horror films. It's pretty rare. And also, the last one I saw in the theater, which I believe was the last movie I saw in the theater, was the First Omen, which was really good in spots, and by the second or third act were pretty interesting. But then the ending was such an abomination, and it was became such a studio film, and it was really disappointing. And so I don't know. When it comes to horror films, well, I'm a pretty intense critic, I guess, most of the time. But when it comes to horror films, I'm pretty demanding. I ask a lot, because it's my favorite genre. So I want it to be a good experience. So I have I definitely have a standard that I want to, that I want it to be. And so I'm a little bit more critical, maybe to a degree, than your average person watching a movie, especially when it comes to newer horror films, because I always go back to my favorite decades: 70s, 80s, 60s. And so when I see newer movies, I'm always trying to like, I do, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, I do compare it. I do this kind of comparison. Even though at the end of the day, what I try to do is go into a movie totally fresh and cold and just have that unique experience. So hopefully, what you see online, maybe a review or so, what someone says to you, maybe in person, um, and all of those things. Not seeing a trailer or not seeing a trailer. Hopefully, you can for the experience, you can kind of sweep all those things aside and just have the experience. So, but I so last night I watched Kids vs Aliens, and it came out, which I was really surprised. I thought it came out last year, but it actually came out in 2022. And this film was directed by Jason Eisner, who isn't really a very prolific director, which is I was surprised. I was surprised how long he's been around, but he's only done a couple of other movies. Well, actually, one full length film. Um, Most notably, it was Hobo with a Shotgun, which came out in 2011 with Rutger Hauer, and that movie's okay. Jason Eisner is a Canadian director. That movie's okay, and he is very much influenced by my favorite decade of cinema, the 70s, the 80s, 60s. He's totally into the the entire exploitation world. Like, it's obvious, like, that's what he is about. What that style or styles are his like biggest influence. His All of his aesthetics for his films are taken from that, which I think is awesome in a lot of ways. But and again, that's my favorite style, and I so automatically I'm gonna probably like this guy or girl who is all about that. But I honestly don't think I think he's a very overrated filmmaker. I thought Hobo with a Shotgun was okay. I thought it was pretty good. It's a pretty crazy, bizarre kind of a trip of a movie. Rutger Hauer is pretty good, pretty great in that film. That was one of his last films that he did before he passed away. But it's not really. At the end of the day, it's kind of a forgettable experience. I didn't really. I don't know. I thought that movie was kind of disappointing and kind of overrated. I thought it was okay. Yeah, on one hand, it's kind of got that sleazy exploitation aesthetic, which is cool, but it's like style over substance. There isn't anything that you can really cling to that or is long lasting. I only saw it once, and I never had a craving to see it again. And just Jason Eisner also, I think, went on to direct these two short movies for these kind of compilation horror things, ABC of Horrors, which was a movie that came out a few years back, which is basically a collection of all of these shorts from from these different horror directors. And then he also did I believe he was also involved with the VHS series, which I've seen. Some of those are pretty good, but he did a short for that also. And then 2 years ago, 2022, he directed Kids vs Aliens, which I thought came out last year. And I saw, I had heard a lot about this movie. I heard that it was pretty good, and one of my favorite YouTube guys, Mood616, talked about this movie. He's a fan of Jason Eisner. He said that Kids vs Aliens was really great and really wacky and kind of insane. So, I got it last night and I watched it, and I have to say, I didn't make it all the way through. I thought the movie was unrelenting in a bad way, not in a good way. The premise of the movie is exactly what the title is. Like, it's basically about these group of kids. It's kind of got this Goonies kind of vibe. It's a total retro, you know, 80s kind of sci-fi exploitation movie. That's the whole aesthetic around this film. The way it's shot and the whole world around it. Which on one hand, again, like Hobo with a Shotgun is super cool, and automatically as a huge fan, and that being my favorite genre, I'm going to naturally want to check it out, or I'm going to like some aspects of this film automatically because of that. But again, I think it's style over substance. I don't think it's super stylized. The one thing I really thought the thing that I really actually really loved about this movie, and I thought was really cool, where I could see ordering it, is the soundtrack. The movie, the score is kind of awesome. It's all like electronic synth 80s music. The whole entire score, and there's music in virtually every moment of the movie. And again, electronic music is my favorite style, so I was a sucker for that. The music is awesome, but again, the characters, I just thought all of the kids. There's this huge cast of these like high school kids and middle school kids, and I there's it's funny because I started watching this movie, and within about 15 to 20 minutes, every character on the screen I felt was so damn annoying that I wanted to see them all die a horrible death within 15 minutes. There was nobody on the screen that I found that I cared about, that I thought was, that had some heart, or that I had some sympathy for. I was just like, all these people, and it's comprised of mostly all kids, obviously. I was like, these kids are just so annoying. I just want to shoot myself, and I can't get behind anything that they're doing. I don't care about what their plight is, and it's just, they were just so annoying. And the way the dialogue is written for this movie, and the way the pacing of this film is that it's like everybody it felt like everybody on set drank like 4 or 5 Red Bulls before they started filming this movie. It's like unrelenting. There's like every kid is like so hyped up to the point of where they seem almost like psychotic, and it's all coming at you at the same time. Like everything is cranked up all the way to 11, and it's all coming at you the entire time. So it's just kind of unrelenting, and there's no like. And then plus the main thing is that the characters are just they're just so they're just so annoying and terrible that I can't get behind anything or anyone that I'm watching on the screen that I care about. And I'm just like, this movie is so annoying, and these kids are just like, I just want them to all die, you know, and it's like you can't have that. And I know this is just my opinion, but you can't have that mindset when you're going into a movie 10 minutes into it, because if that happens, it's going to be a long and painful road. You're not going to be invested. And I found out, I just realized that this movie, ironically, is incredibly short. It's only an hour and 10 minutes, I guess, which is so it's barely technically a full length feature. And I'm just like, what, like. And the other thing I found out about this movie, which I thought was kind of lame, was this movie is actually an IP. This was actually Jason, the director, Jason Eisner. He directed this movie, or this premise, as a short in one of, I think it's the VHS series, and it was I think it was called Kids vs Aliens, but it was a short movie. and it came out quite a few years ago. And I'm like, he's going to turn that into a movie, a full length feature, which is not even, which is barely an hour and 10 minutes. Just like totally ridiculous. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't get what the hell is going on. Why it's got to be based on something that's not really that great, and it's barely, it barely reaches the mark as actually being a full length feature. And I just like, it's kind of a joke. And I just feel like Jason Jason Eisner is you know, it's all style over substance, and I just feel like he's so overrated. And I know he doesn't make a lot of movies. Like he's done two full length features technically, and he scored big time when he got obviously Rutger Hauer, a legend in film, to be the star of Hobo with a Shotgun, which was for what it was, definitely an independent movie at the time. Came out in 2011, many years ago, and was, from what I gather, was a very successful movie, but not very good. It was okay, and I kind of feel this movie is worse than that. I think that was watchable, and you could get into it, and you could go on that journey, as far as Hobo with a Shotgun. But I think this movie, for me, I couldn't get all the way through it, even though it's like an hour and 10 minutes, which is ridiculous, and speaks volumes. Really does speak volumes of like what the hell's going on here when you can't even get into when the characters turn you off and the acting and the pacing and the characters are just flat out so annoying that you're like I can't do this. I can't subject myself to this for the next hour. So I literally got, I don't know, I got maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes into this movie, and I reached a point where I was this movie is just so annoying. I can't do it. And I stopped. I stopped watching it. And so yeah, I was disappointed with this movie, to say the least. And it's Hobo the Shotgun, I think, was much better. And that's not saying a lot, but I think Jason Eisner is really overrated as a director. I'm not. It's we need to have some good. We need to have some directors that you know need to, I don't know, do their own thing. Like and the other thing about this movie that I didn't like, and it was also an issue that I have with Hobo the Shotgun, but especially with this movie, I feel like this movie, Kids vs. Aliens, tries so hard to be cool. It's like trying so hard. It feels like everything, every scene, and every you know everything about this movie, it just feels like it's forced. Everything feels like they're trying to make it cool and hip and dark and edgy and absurd, and it just feels like they're just trying to do it, and they're trying to make it low budget when a lot of these movies, the exploitation world, it wasn't, you know Herschel Gordon Lewis wasn't trying to make his movie cool, or Lucio Fulci, or directors like Sergio Martino, or Al Addison. Like, they weren't trying to make their movies cool. They were like creative minds, but they were working within the perimeters of really not having very much money at all. And that was really it. It wasn't a premeditated thing. They weren't trying to make, something that was hip and cool to kind of fit into this style. And I feel like that's a problem with Jason Eisner's. He's like, it just feels, everything feels forced, and nothing feels organic. Like it, he's like, I just feel like he's always trying to harken back to the decade or decades of films that he loves, and it just feels forced, and I can't get into that either. So yeah, really disappointing. Kind of a hyped movie. I have heard a lot about this film. I've seen a lot of things actually online about this movie, saying how good it is and that it's gotten a lot of press and all of these things. And yeah, don't waste your time. So this is Jason Dean, and I will see you next time. Peace.